Snook, 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 snook. Is this the S map? No, this is the normal map. Why do you hate Daybreak, man? Daybreak is fine. So this is TVZ. And I'm fast forwarding to get to the good part because nothing's gonna do we have an awful lot of Marines for this early in the game. And an awful lot of gas. This isn't a very clean build that's going on here. Look at this. You're basically on 1.5 racks and you're going to 4. This is similar to what I've seen before. 24 workers is beautiful. Army spending of practically none, which is fine because in TVZ all you need is a wall and a bunker. This is not a solid wall, just so you know. And then this is a good double wall here, but if he breaks this reactor core, he still gets through, so it's not a double wall. And he can just go around here. He doesn't need to break it. I don't know if you've noticed, but your troops keep walking around. And I'd like another depot here as well, and another depot here. But not, you don't want to have to rush to have too many depots. Whatever, most being the bus will come to it. And the ones that come before then, you can usually stop with a single bunker, so no. I'm still waiting to see what kind of composition you're going for. It looks like reactors, medevacs, marines, and no upgrades. Oh, single engineering bay upgrade, that's fine. I feel like it's 11 minutes and you still haven't showed the Zerg that you have an army too. Sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it's not. A Zerg who feels like you're definitely not going to attack him until 12 minutes can have 72 workers at 9 minutes, which is ridiculous. Because the quickest we can get 72 workers is 13 minutes, so that's a huge economic lead. But most Zergs, especially in lower leagues like this, aren't going to do that because they're afraid, well, what if he's hitting me or whatever, and they don't know how to use scouting information to find out whether or not they're safe. So, like this guy did, he stopped at 47 workers even though you haven't pushed out, so it's totally fine. I see things and I think of them from a Masters League perspective, like, oh, this Zerg's going to get a billion zillion work, but then I remember we're not playing against Masters League Zergs, so it's okay. So 142 supply against 86 supply, you're just going to stomp him. And this is an example of what can go wrong when you have so many Marines that you just can't move them around without them forming these giant little piles. Because you can tell, I mean, your army is so big that theoretically, if you can engage without him being able to get good splashes on you, you ought to win. Your upgrades aren't great. You're working on 2-1 now at 13 minutes. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. He's on 1-1. He's ahead of you on upgrades. You've got this giant army of Marines. Look how low your money is. Look how high your income is. Everything is doing really well. Oh, you did. You started the CC at 10 minutes. You did everything right so far this game. Everything's going really well. Factory racks, lots of additional buildings, keeping your money low. I love it. I love it. Everything's going right, man. This is good stuff. So, I don't know if this fight's going to go well, but I suspect that you're going to not split and get pwned by banelings. We'll see. We'll see. And the reason I say I suspect that is because you are doing so well at your macro that your attention's not going to be on the push when you attack it. So let's watch your vision and see what happens when the fight actually starts. So now you're so close to his hatchery that, yeah, it's time to start patrol splitting. And no, this is a big pile of guys. Oh, okay. So the problem is it's so much easier to split 12 guys than it is to split a billion zillion freaking guys. So you have 73 Marines, and it's almost impossible to split 73 Marines in this area. You need a lot more space to split 73 Marines. So, like, you can probably squeeze 12 in here and, like, 15 here and 15 here. But that's only 45. And, you know, the other 40 have to go here. Like, you have to realize that the more Marines you have, the more area you need to split them over. And it always sucks. Excuse me, when you come over here with your first Marines and you're like, oh, he's not defending that. Oh, he's coming from behind. Now what do I do? And so you're like, well, first I got to run away from the guys coming in. And that's kind of right, but by doing that, you're clumping everybody up into this giant pile. And the next step is to grab small groups and split them off. And that's true, but you can't patrol split them off because now you've run so close to this hatchery that if you tell someone to patrol back, they're just going to shoot at the hatchery. So you've put yourself in this scenario right where you are right now. It's completely impossible to split your Marines before the Banelings arrive. When you were over here, you could have patrolled a bunch of guys back this way, and they wouldn't have hit the hatchery in time. So they would have at least spread out, and then these guys you could have grabbed some and moved them out. But now it's impossible. The little area you jammed yourself into, you can't split viably. So your army is still, let's see, it's 46 against 49. You had a much bigger lead earlier, but you're still economically way ahead. I'd like to see you land this command center during your push. Like, push to the edge of creep and spread out right here so that he knows you're coming and he's scared, and then go land and morph your CC as you take these guys and push in. And that way the CC will be morphing into a PF as you fight, because when you're fighting, that's the least likely time for him to do a run by, because you're actively fighting right now and he wants every single troop he can muster to be in this battle. So in the beginning, when it's just lings against Marines, you're way ahead on damage. But then as the Banelings start to splash into these clumped up Marines, he starts to equalize, and by the end of the fight, it's been an even trade, despite you having a much bigger army. And it's never good to trade evenly when you have an advantage. Obviously, advantages are meant to give you advantages. But still, this wasn't terrible. And as long as you keep up on your macro back home, you should be okay. I wonder if you hotkeyed. No, you didn't hotkey your new buildings. So this is a problem. You are macroing back home, but you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings hotkeyed. Everything else that you built, they're not hotkeyed. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and probably even this command center isn't hotkeyed. Let's check. Where's your CC thing? No, you have 6 things in your CC thing. I don't know how to check what's in that command group, so I guess that's probably hotkeyed. Anyway, when you make new buildings, stare at them a little longer and hotkey them. Don't just be like build, 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 and then go away and then never come back, because then the new buildings will never get used, and that's a mistake everybody makes. Don't feel too bad about it. But with the mutas mopping up these medevacs, now he came out way ahead in that fight. He ended up $1,200 ahead in that fight. And you're trying to land the CC after he's won a big engagement, when he feels totally safe to run around the field, so you're not going to be able to get your third. And this is not because of the map. This is because of when you tried to morph that CC. If you try to morph a CC right after a big fight, it's just never going to work. So you had a really huge early advantage. You actually still have a pretty huge worker lead. But because you haven't been able to secure that third, your lead is just imaginary, because all of these extra workers are just not mining. They're just waiting for a place to mine at. And you lost the CC, so now it's going to take forever to build another one, like at least 3 minutes. And during those 3 minutes, you're going to be even further behind on income. He's going to spread out and take all the hatcheries across the map. So I would say that what you did in this game was good enough to beat this guy. But it just came down to when you attacked and how you attacked. I feel like I turned up my, I did. I turned up my sound because I was playing and I wanted to hear stuff, and now I can't hear myself talk. But securing that third is like absolutely crucial. Even if you win the first fight by a significant amount, it's hard to mop up Zergs, because as long as they keep spitting out huge clumps of Lings and Banelings, you might win every fight, but you're never going to get in there and kill a hatchery. And again, a big Ling Baneling versus Marine fight where you have a massive lead on your army. This is like almost 43 Marines, which is a crap ton, and he's got tiny amount of Lings and just 4 Banelings, and he's gonna get in here and like massacre a bunch of Marines. Very silly. And this just all comes down to the default functionality of Marines, which is to clump up. Anytime you tell them to move anywhere, they clump up. And it just takes a lot of practice to not clump your Marines. So, obviously you've got 2 choices. Get better at maneuvering Marines so that they're never clumped up during a battle. or don't make Marines against Zerg. I would go for number 1 because it's something you can practice in the unit map tester. It's something you can. There's actually a great map for it. I want to quit in the middle of it. I mean, I assume you lose from here, right? You did finally secure your 3rd. I don't know, maybe because you secured your 3rd, you might be okay. Your income's higher than his. Your army is bigger than his, smaller than his. I think you've got better upgrades. 2-1 against 2-2. No, you got slightly worse upgrades, but compositionally, clumped Marines lose hardcore to Lingbane. Unclumped Marines win really, really heavily against this composition, but clumped Marines lose to it. That was beautiful. I like that maneuver. But run faster because you're probably not going to get away. Lots of turrets being built, lots of idle SCVs, no 4th command center, even though it's 22 minutes in. You scan to kill the little burrowed lang and starting the command. So you know that you need that CC, but you needed it a lot earlier. Again, the goal in TV anything is to get a 3k income and then keep it, and that means before your main runs dry, you have to have a 4th. And your main's going to tend to start running dry at 15 minutes if you fully saturate it, and if you soft cap saturate it, it'll start running dry at 16 or 17 minutes, especially if you don't drop any mules up there. But 22 minutes is clearly going to at least be partially dry, if not all dry. So you got 77 workers and no income, and that's a very sad state. Very sad state, and he never really tried too hard to prevent you from getting more command centers. Like, he's not even scouting this one until just now. He burrowed a ling there, but he didn't really try to prevent it. So, I guess my point is that you're not being brave enough with your CCs. You're being pretty brave with your attacks, and you've traded less. Basically, you've traded evenly since that first attack in which you were all clumped up and lost a bunch of crap. But in subsequent attacks, you've always traded evenly, and you've been pretty aggressive with it, and you've been pretty brave moving out before you get to 200 unit space, which I like. But you already had a disadvantage of army, and then you got a bigger disadvantage of income, and it's really hard to come from a point of income disadvantage and win against a Zerg. No matter what composition he does, against anyone. I mean, TVP, TVT, TVZ. If they have a crap ton more money than you, it's really hard to beat them. It's just how StarCraft works. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. So, because he's got a huge income lead, he feels comfortable suiciding $2,000 worth of banelings to kill 2 Thors in a planetary fortress. And you're gonna base trade, which is the right move, but he's gonna knock down all of your income, and now you're completely not mining. So don't stand here shooting at larva for too long. Try to bring him down to not mining as well, because he's mined out on his main and natural, you're mined out on your main and natural. If you can sprint over, knock this down, and then pre-spread in a good position here, and then lift your wall and hide behind it, you win. This is the end of the game, and you win. Because his composition is like all muta, so he can't break your wall, and it just mutas. But instead, I mean, nobody ever knows when they're inches from victory, so it's okay if you blow it. So now he's got no income. The key is to spread out, to get your units in a position where these infestors are not going to be able to kill them all with like a couple of fungals. Broodlord's just coming now, but again, he's got 0 income, no gas coming in, no minerals coming in. All you have to do is live, and then he's never going to get more than 3 Broodlords. And again, when you move Marines, they clump up and they all die to a couple of fungals, and that's the end of the game. So basically, consistently throughout this entire game, you did the right things. Macro-wise, you made the right units. You were aggressive with them. You went to the right places with your attacks. You defended well. You know, and the only 2 big problems you had were not getting your command centers down at expansions early enough. Not doing it during times of distraction for the Zerg. Like, you kept trying to expand while he had nothing better to do but watch you expand. And much more importantly, clumping up your Marines, moving around your Marines in giant clumps. And that's something you really have to... There's a great map for learning how to not do this. I don't know if anyway, there's 2 maps. Marine Split Challenge, which everyone's probably seen before. Wow. There's a lot of Marine Split Challenge is this one, Marine Split Challenge, from Griffith, and then Marine Tank Challenge is the other one. Not a lot of people have seen this one. So the idea is that he's got lings, banelings, and mutas. So if you ever clump up your marines and let banelings splash on them, you're going to lose to the mutas. And it just like gives you an opportunity to practice spreading your crap out as you approach that sort of nonsense. So I would say try to get better at marine splits or switch to a build that doesn't include marines. But I don't know. I like the idea of just getting better at keeping your marines all spread out. So you notice with this many marines, I can't spread them in a way where they're immune to baneling splashes very quickly. Like even that took 4 or 5, 6 seconds, and I ended up with a clump of 4 here. 4 is too many. A clump of 5 here. 5 is too many. This is a good clump. 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 This is a bad clump. This is a terrible clump. So when you have larger groups of marines like this, you really have to do the splitting instead of the moving. And this ends up with still a kind of somewhat bad clump, somewhat bad clump, somewhat bad clump, whatever. So anyway, that's the idea. Bloop, 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 bloop. I like to mix patrol splitting with specific splits too. Like if you patrol split and then you try to look for clumps. Like this is all good. All of this worked out pretty well except for right here. If a baneling hits right there, he's going to get 5 guys. So then you just look for the place where it's bad and move dudes out. And then as he's coming in, you're just moving dudes around constantly. And it all works out. So anyway, give these types of maps a shot where the Zerg... the Griffith is... I don't know if he used the green TAI or whatever he did, but the Zerg is going to be reasonable about what it does attacking into you. So it gives you an opportunity to practice moving your marines around without splitting them up. And crossing large distances on creep without being clumped up when the Zerg ambushes you, and you don't get to see when he's coming. Like, it's really important to be able to do that. Because if you worry about always having your guys spread out, you're never going to get across the map. And that's a problem Nick was complaining about in one of the recent games that we looked at together. Was like, yes, I understand that I don't want to be clumped up when I move across the field, and I understand that I want to get across the field while I still have this 14-minute advantage. But I can't do both. Like, those are mutually exclusive things. Don't clump up and get across the field quickly. How do you do both? And the answer is carpet bombing and patrol splitting and scanning ahead to find out where his army is, and just really trying to cover the distances where you're not going to be attacked in a giant ball, totally vulnerable, because it doesn't matter how vulnerable you are when you're not getting attacked. And then when you get to a place where you're like 5-6 seconds from being attacked, then you take those 5 and 6 seconds to patrol spread everywhere. And suddenly he sees you spread out, and maybe he doesn't attack you, or you know, maybe he does, and you're already split out in good times. So I loved the macro you did. You've always had certain problems not getting your upgrades quick enough, not making enough buildings, not keeping your money low, basically. So you've always, not always, but since we first talked about income, you immediately got really good at just queuing up 3 workers and always having a huge income. And then your problem was not being able to spend it. And in that game, you spent every penny. You did great at spending your money. You threw down a bunch of buildings at 13 minutes, which is exactly what we've been talking about. And all of that was great. So, I mean, next step, don't clump your marines. There's just lots of progress was visible in that game, even though you lost it.